My name is Ajit Varma. I live in Palo Alto. I've lived here on and off for the last 20 years. So I've seen a lot of the growth that has happened, especially as companies like Google and Facebook have grown in the Bay Area. I've been thinking about running for a while now, about the last like 6, 7 months. And the reason for this is I feel like that there's just a lot of changes that are happening to the world. And just local governments are really not keeping up with it. But a lot of the decisions that really affect people are done at the city level. So things like, what is the zoning of the city? Like what is like the stance on like housing and stuff like that. And generally in Palo Alto, at least, what you see is that a lot of the candidates that are running are very much about the status quo and making sure that sort of Palo Alto is there for the people who've lived here for like 20, 30, 40 years. The thing that really surprises me is that there's a lot of aversion towards businesses in Palo Alto. And the reason I moved to Palo Alto was because you had all these great Silicon Valley tech companies. And I think that that's a really important part of our unique space in the world. I think that a lot of people in Palo Alto would rather no change happen. And so then more recently with the impact of COVID, things that were, I think, macro changes, like companies relocating to other areas or people working remotely, accelerated quite a bit. And so when I look at my own company where I work at Facebook, leading some of the product development at WhatsApp, when you talk to people like, do you want to be here or would you like to work remote? You'd actually be surprised as quite a few, like close to the majority of people would prefer to leave the Bay Area and work for these great companies, but work from home. And to me, that's just like a seismic shift. It's almost like we found this great thing. We created this great hub of innovation. And now we're saying let's just get rid of it and we don't want to support it anymore. So that's the biggest reason why I'm running is really encourage innovation and technology and be supportive of these businesses and be supportive of these entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of that is affecting the Indian community, where a lot of Indians are working in tech professions. They all are entrepreneurs. And I think we really need to be welcoming of people with new ideas and encourage them to come up with those ideas, encourage them to pursue their dreams, which I haven't seen a lot of in Palo Alto. I think with Palo Alto, you see this debate against what they call residentialists versus developers. And so oftentimes this view is painted as someone who wants growth wants to create a skyscraper next to a single family home in residential area. And so then people get scared and they're well, I don't want a skyscraper next to me. And so then it turns into this opposition towards anything. But one is I think Palo Alto in particular has many areas where you can have density. So things on El Camino, which is one of our major roads, and you have a lot of height restrictions. So you can't build over 50 feet in Palo Alto. You can't build without a certain parking ratio. And so all these things discourage development from happening. And also, I think the way to make a lot of this work is through mixed use. And so you look at companies like Google who've committed, $1 billion to housing in the Bay Area. And I think you work with them to say okay, we'll give you the ability to build ground floor office or retail, which is where you can get very high rents. And in return, you have to build affordable housing on the top. In the past, there's been projects where the city council basically it could only be affordable housing. And what happens is nothing gets built. Because they can't make the economics work because the price of land is so expensive. It's definitely been a very different election. Technology is playing a big role in actually bridging this gap. So with all the debates in Palo Alto, there's tons of Zooms. So I'm doing 3 or 4 Zooms just for debates every week. They're definitely different because I think it's harder for newcomers to come in and highlight the personality, or I would love to go debate and then talk to people. But then I've also found a lot of residents they want to just have a Zoom with 3 or 4 of their friends, and so that's actually what I found that's been really effective. I've also been doing a lot of just targeting for online ads, and so I think that that's another effective way. So it's a lot of social media, Facebook posts. I've been writing a lot of articles on my website. When I think of ideas, I write a blog article, and I try to distribute that. I think when you see other people doing it, you feel it's more achievable. And so at least for me, when you see a lot of Indians who are more successful at Senate races, in cavalry or running for the vice president, it sort of is just feels more achievable. And then on top of that, like I think that a lot of the like enhanced like visibility on politics. So a lot of things like Black Lives Matter, a lot of things like the diversity, it sort of like just shows that representation is like really important. And I think like South Asians in general, like are in a lot of ways like want to help the community, are really thinking of like how can we do things better. But I think that like with anything, it's like, you know, if you're coming to America, like, you know, for my parents when they came here, it's like you don't have the time to do that. You're sort of just like, you know, like getting used to a new culture and a new world. But then it's like, you know, next generations, like it's like you know, you do have like more of a feeling of like familiarity with the systems and like how things work, and you have like more of the luxury and like the resources to make this happen. So I think it's like more of like a just like at the place where Indian Americans are just more prevalent in the US, and have like more of an interest in being politically active.